Rand woke to soft conversations in the distance. The first thing he noticed was that he was hungry. He didn't feel as stiff as he'd have expected after several days of unconsciousness, and attributed it to Nynaeve caring for him, and Moiraine throughout. He remained under the covers for a minute or two longer, but the hunger became too pressing, so he tossed them off, stretched his limbs, and made his way out of the tent with a slight wobble to his step that would hopefully be gone soon. "You're awake," Egwene exclaimed immediately, rushing to his side for a hug. Rand returned it with a smile. "How long?" "4 days," Egwene said. "Nynaeve said you'd be all right, but—" "I was still a bit worried." "That's okay," Rand said. "In fact, I'm flattered. Don't grow too big-headed, Woolhead." Chuckled. "I promise." "So, did it work?" Egwene asked, looking up at him with her large brown eyes from where she was still hugging into his chest. He smiled and seized Sedine. "Delicious," Clean said in. "It did." "My congratulations," Loyal rumbled. Tom grinned past his pipe. "I do have to say, being in your company has certainly been worth it so far, even if I fear I may soon run out of charcoal or ink to write things down with. And you don't even have a court for me to be a bard of yet." "I do intend to have one by sunset," Rand said, glancing up at the sky and finding it was early in the afternoon. Tom laughed. "I suppose this is what OGA feel like when dealing with normal humans." That, in turn, made Loyal laugh, too. "My life has certainly reached a new level of excitement since meeting you, Rand." "Has Moiraine woken up?" Tam asked. Rand looked over his shoulder. "She hadn't when I did, but I imagine it won't be much longer." "I'd like something to eat, though." "I'm not surprised to hear that," Nynaeve said, already rummaging through a bag. "Get over here, Woolhead," chuckled. "Not cutting me any slack, are you? Someone has to be the responsible one here." "I would never deny you your rightful place, Nynaeve." She handed him some of their rations. "You become annoyingly good with words, you know that I need to. Soon, you'll start learning from the Aes Sedai," Rand smirked. "Don't get too irreverent now," she threatened. "I just averted a fate of insanity," Rand said. "You'll have to forgive me for being in a good mood. And thanks for watching over us while we were unconscious. And tending to us, if I'm not mistaken from the lack of stiffness I'm feeling." He sat down on the ground, and Nynaeve lowered herself next to him. "I'm sad I had to miss you growing up, Rand," she said. "You're making me proud, though." "I don't think you'd say that if you were actually there," Rand laughed. "I remember many, many times when you were rather exasperated with me." "I must have done something right," Nynaeve joked in a haughty tone of voice. "I wouldn't have been so insistent on having you accompany me if you hadn't done a lot of things right," Rand said. "People in positions of power need one thing above all, and it's people who'll say no to them while also having their best interests in mind. You, Moiraine, my father, you're all like that, and not too many others are." "That does sound like a healthy starting point," Nynaeve said. "I'm not sure how I can provide that for you if I'm at the White Tower to learn how to channel, though." She sounded a bit sour at the thought, but she'd relented after a lengthy conversation on the reasons in favor of doing so. "I'll still have Moiraine and my father," Rand said. "And we have traveling. The White Tower might not officially allow visitors, and men in particular, to novices and accepted, but I would be very surprised if they tried to make a big thing out of it if I met you and Egwene on occasion. And I'll probably want to regularly meet with the amyrlin seat for political reasons, so it's not as if you're the only reason I'm there in the first place." "Rather you than me," Nynaeve said, "with the politics." "With the politics! It's not so very different from the village council, women's circle and wisdom," Rand said. "Except people feel a lot more self-important, and you're making decisions about thousands of people whose names and faces you don't know, instead of individual people or groups that you're personally familiar with." "I'm not convinced that makes the decision-making any better," Nynaeve said with a frown. "It does not," Rand said. "Quite the opposite, in fact. And when you consider the average decision made by the village council, what about the Aes Sedai?" Nynaeve asked. "Do they help? Do they hurt? The best are like Moiraine. She would give her life in a heartbeat if it saved me, as the prophesied savior. The worst, Something like 1 out of every 5 Aes Sedai is sworn to the Dark One. I imagine that would tell you enough. Nynaeve gasped. That many? Look at you, Rand said, surprised that out of every 5 Aes Sedai, merely 4 can be trusted to fight the shadow if they're with you while it attacks. I doubt you'd have reacted like that just a month ago. Nynaeve quieted at that, no doubt reflecting her recent changes in attitude towards Aes Sedai. Still, that is incredibly dangerous. Yet you seem to consider the Aes Sedai to be allies. Potential allies, Rand corrected. I know the amyrlin seat is trustworthy, and I know several other influential ones who are. And, as I believe I've shared before, there is someone who has a mostly complete list of all Black Sisters. We'll start getting rid of them, hopefully tomorrow. While they were chatting, Moiraine had woken up, and Lan had immediately provided her with something to eat. Mat and Perrin joined Rand and Nynaeve, and conversation drifted to lighter topics. About an hour later, everyone was ready for the next step, although that included slightly more waiting for most of them. Moiraine, shall we collect my sword? She raised an eyebrow. You do have a way of putting things, do you not? I'll take that as a yes. Quick reminder for everyone. I'll go ahead with Moiraine and speak to the Tyran nobility, and then I'll fetch all of you after that, so that you can sleep in the stone tonight. He seized Saidin, again reveling in the fact that he could do so without restraint, and wove a gateway directly to the heart of the stone. He stepped through, Moiraine right behind him, and together they stood in front of Callandor. Strange, Moiraine said. I can see weaves that ward off the sword, but there are gaps in them. That's where Saidin has been woven instead, Rand said. I see the other parts, although of course I cannot see the Cedar. If you put your hand on it, you'll find you cannot go beyond the ward's boundary even where you cannot see any weaves. Moiraine did so, first, from Rand's perspective, placing her hand on a gap and then moving towards Saidin. Then, Rand stepped forward and reached through the weave to claim the sword. That is not a sword. The weave fell apart as soon as Rand's hand closed around the hilt. Is it made of glass? Moiraine asked, curious. Or crystal? It seems fragile, chuckled. I can assure you that it is not. In fact, I once parted balefire with it, although that is something I prefer to not have to repeat. I am not sure how that even worked out, so what is it then? A sangria for Saidin, Rand answered. One of the strongest ever made, although not quite on the level of the Shoidan Kal. However, it cannot be used safely, not by itself. Unless the wielder is in a circle with 2 women can forcibly draw the wielder into a circle, and then they have control of the weaves, and he wouldn't even be able to leave the circle until they released him. Exactly, Rand said. Which is why, most of the time, I will only be using it to display my status as the Dragon Reborn. Although when I do need to use it, I will likely ask you to link with me. But let's go meet the High Lords. I'll let you take the lead, Moiraine said. Rand wove a mirror of mists, not to change his appearance, but to show richer clothes than what he was actually wearing. He would be able to have clothes befitting his position made for him soon, but he hadn't had the opportunity before. Did you know that? The first time around, you ordered rich clothes for me and then burned my old ones, thus forcing me to wear them, Rand said with a chuckle. I was rather annoyed at that back then. That seems like an extreme measure, Moiraine noted. You knew I was the Dragon Reborn, Rand said, but I was refusing to admit it, even to myself. It was part of your attempts to prepare me for the position, despite my reluctance is probably an understatement, to accept it. By dressing me like a lord, you made people treat me like a lord, which forced to learn to behave like one. It didn't take long for them to come across a High Lord who stopped dead in his tracks at the sight of a tall, red-haired stranger, even if he was wearing rich clothes. Who are you? The man demanded, putting his hand on the pommel of the sword he was wearing at his side. Rand put Callandor in front of him, the tip resting on the floor of the corridor. I am sure you know, High Lord Tolian. The plain-faced man stared at the sword like it was a snake. That's impossible. I fear I must disappoint you in that regard. Perhaps I could speak to you and the rest of the council, or at least those that are here in the stone, High Lord Torean.
I don't,
he stammered, but Rand cut him off. If you or your peers decide to greet me with violence, I will be forced to return the favor, Rand said. I am sure you know enough about me to understand how bad of an idea that would be. But rest assured, I will not attack anyone who does not attack me first, even if they are with someone who does attack me. A pair of guards had turned the corner, but at a gesture from Torean, they remained at a short distance. I will do that, Torean said. Who is with you? You may call me Lord Dragon, Rand said. With me is Moiraine Damodre, an Aes Sedai and my advisor. I expect you all to show her the same courtesy you would to me. Torean called the guards to him and relayed what Rand had said, including that he would not attack without being attacked. Make sure to get that message, start to finish, across to every High Lord and Lady, he instructed. We will meet the Lord Dragon in the council room. When the guards left, recruited to messengers, he turned back to Rand, but before he'd figured out how to ask his question, Rand spoke. I know the way. Torean nodded, somewhat hurriedly leading the way there. He had no need to be anywhere else, after all. Lord Dragon, he said, after spending a minute deliberating whether or not the question was going to get him killed, assuming Rand was reading his body language right. If I may ask, what is your actual name? I am Rand aL'Thor, Rand said, and know that I will not act against you because you display curiosity, although I do expect respect, both for myself and for others. But we will speak about that in more length in a moment. They arrived at and entered the council room together. Well, Rand entered first, then Moiraine, and then Torean. Only one other High Lord was already present, although Rand was certain the others would join them soon. Good afternoon, High Lord Aracombe. Welcome, Lord Dragon, the man responded, sounding slightly strained. He gave Moiraine a dirty look, but didn't otherwise comment on her presence or status. As the High Lords and Ladies present filed in, Rand made sure to greet each of them by their name, visibly surprising most of them. He was glad to see Darlin Cisnera was here too. Darlin had initially led a rebellion against Rand, but eventually he had been swayed to Rand's side and had proven a capable steward and later even King of Tyr. He had left the stone in the immediate aftermath of Rand taking it last time. This time, he'd likely been too overwhelmed to decide to make a break for it, which gave Rand an opportunity to seek to secure his loyalty immediately. High Lords and Ladies, Rand said when he was informed they were complete. Thank you for your quick response after I called you here. My name is Rand aL'Thor, and I am the Dragon Reborn. He put a hand on the pommel of Calendor, which was lying on the table he was standing behind. With me is Moiraine Damodre, Aes Sedai of the Blue Ajah. First of all, I wish to make clear that I intend to work together with you, not against you. Not against you. And why should we work together with you in the first place? Wiramon Sanyago challenged. The grey-haired, balding High Lord, oddly reminiscent of a strutting rooster, had little sense that Rand could remember. However, he did have power, which meant he had to be worked with. Although Rand certainly did not intend to give him the same influence as last time around, the man had never used it well. Rand was severely tempted to threaten him, and all other High Lords that had their doubts, into submission, but fear made for poor underlings. Because as far as tens of thousands of people out there are concerned, including thousands in Tyr itself, I am the rightful ruler of this land, simply because I hold Calendor. I am sure you understand that there are benefits to working with me. That got several of them to perk up. Corruption and nepotism were as popular as cheating on wives and beating up commoners among Tyrene nobility. Not that Rand intended to indulge in that, but there were also benefits that didn't require a faulty moral compass, even if they weren't the ones the High Lords were likely to be thinking of. But that is going to require a concession from us, Darlin said. It will, Rand agreed bluntly. I do not intend to personally take care of Tyr's day-to-day affairs, at least not where it can be avoided. This is in part because it is likely that I will obtain power elsewhere as well. However, There are certain Tyren laws that I find objectionable. Now, the lords were looking worried, such as Torian tried. The law that forbids channeling will go, Rand said, leaving no room for debate, as will any other laws that discriminate against channelers, male or female. We mustn't allow male channelers. Hi, Lady Anayela exclaimed, presumably forgetting for a moment who Rand was. Those of you with eyes and ears among the Aes Sedai, or other contacts with them that you would refuse to admit to in any circumstance, may be aware that extremely strong channeling was felt in Western Andor 4 days ago, strong enough to be notable from hundreds or even thousands of leagues away. On that day, the taint was removed from Sedene. The male half of the One Power is again safe to use. We are on the brink of a new age, lords and ladies. The world will change tremendously in the coming years. You will have to adapt, for if you do not, you will be left behind. The last sentences Rand spoke were almost drowned out by the protests from the nobles present. He let them shout and complain for a while, then wove air and caused a thunderclap, although quieted to not leave their ears ringing. I do not intend to simply lay down a number of laws today without dialogue, he said. He had done that last time around, and while it had gotten some effects, it had also caused significant animosity. The purpose of this meeting is to announce my presence here in the stone to all of you, and to make you aware of what I intend to do. You will all have time to consider any legal changes I propose, and discuss them with me, although I must stress that your disagreement is not itself going to be a reason for me to not enact it. However, if you provide argumentation behind your disagreement, I will consider it first. I am but one man after all, and I can, and will, make mistakes. Rand made brief eye contact with each of the High Lords and Ladies in turn, ensuring that they had received the message. Lord Dragon, Darlin said, what is your intention for the future of Tyr? I intend for Tyr to be my primary seat of power, Rand said. I also wish to bring it wealth, prosperity, and safety for all, commoner and noble. As I already said, I wish to pursue this goal with your aid, where possible. And if it is not, Darlin asked, then I will seek to resolve the conflict in the most peaceful manner as possible. Tarmongaidon is fast approaching, and we will need to stand unified if we are to beat back the shadow. Someone scoffed at that, and Rand shot them a sharp look. Is my very presence not a sign that the last battle is near? He challenged. It remained silent, so he turned back to Darlin. Does that answer your question, High Lord? To a degree, Darlin conceded. I do wish to speak to you more, Lord Dragon. You will have the opportunity soon, Rand said. These coming few days, I will still be busy with some pressing business. After that, I will have more time, including time to speak to all of you in personal meetings, if you so desire. I will make use of that as soon as I can, Lord Dragon, Darlin noted. Then, as far as I am concerned, today's meeting is concluded, Rand said. I will speak to the serving staff about my quarters and those of my friends, who I will bring in shortly. As with Moiraine, I expect that you do not bother them unnecessarily. And if you have a problem with one of the youths, you will bring it up with me, not with them. He again made eye contact with all the nobles, then nodded. Be on your way. The next morning, Rand met up with Moiraine and Lan after breakfast. I wonder what your friend will think, Rand said with a smirk. Moiraine couldn't hold back a small laugh. Xuan must be going crazy by now. Let's not keep her waiting then, Rand said. I'll let you do the honors for the gateway. I'm not familiar with the White Tower's layout. Straight to the amyrlin's quarters, right? Unless you want to give the Black Ajah time to react to the presence of the Dragon Reborn, yes. I have heard it said that referring to yourself in third person is a sign of madness, Moiraine joked. Rand laughed. But if that is the only madness the Dragon Reborn has to deal with, he will gladly accept it. Moiraine wove the gateway, straight into the amyrlin seat's office, and stepped through, Lan behind her and Rand, who dropped his mirror of mists, the amyrlin seat wouldn't mind, followed last. Xuan had been sitting behind her desk, but when Rand got to look around the room, "Moiraine," she exclaimed when she saw who had stepped through. That's traveling!" "It is," Moiraine said. Rand suspected she was heavily relying on her training to hide emotions right now. An opportunity to put Siwan on the wrong foot as many times as today wasn't likely to come to pass again anytime soon. Perhaps not ever. "And he is the one you found," Xuan said, glancing at Rand, her talent to see Tavarin confirming it already. Rand drew Calendor from the scabbard on his back and placed it in front of him, like he had done the previous day when meeting Toraine. "I am indeed the Dragon Reborn." Siwan fell silent when she saw the blade. Then she looked back at Moiraine. "I would have liked a more timely update on what you have been doing, daughter." Moiraine allowed a small smirk. "Feel free to cuss at me, Siwan." At that, Xuan's Aes Sedai mask relaxed and showed some of the stress she'd been hiding. "In that case, perhaps you can tell me what in the bloody light is going on, you blasted madwoman." "It is, as I said," Moiraine responded, still completely calm. "I found the Dragon Reborn. Then I came here at the first opportunity to speak to you." "First opportunity," Xuan said skeptically. "I am sure all those earlier occasions where you could apparently bloody travel do not count, including the one where you send an entire delegation, complete with false dragon, ahead of you." "We were on a schedule," Moiraine said primly. "Perhaps we should take a seat." "Fine. Take a bloody seat," Xuan exclaimed, leading them to a sitting room that probably didn't see all that much use, considering the small number of people she could even remotely treat as equals. Rand shared an amused look with Lan as they sat down, before focusing his attention back on the two women again. "And burn me, what did you do with Sai? The entire tower has been like a disturbed anthill for 4 days now." "So you did the experiment," Moiraine noted. "Good. Explain," Xuan growled. "We used an elaborate weave of Sadar to strip the taint of Sedin and let Shadar Logoth trap it until the two annihilated each other. Speaking of which, I should report that Shadar Logoth no longer exists. Moiraine Damodre, I swear by the light, if you do not start speaking sense very quickly, I will keelhaul you." "On what boat?" Rand asked amusedly. Siwan rounded on him. "You?" She paused, then took a deep breath and closed her eyes. Rand guessed she was doing meditative exercises like were taught to novices and accepted. After what had to be at least 25 heartbeats, she opened her eyes again. "Moiraine Sedai, perhaps you could give a brief overview of recent events while traveling with this man who is the dragon." "Reborn." Moiraine nodded, appearing completely serious. "Let's see. I found Rand in 2 Rivers, where it became clear to me very quickly that he was the Dragon Reborn. The shadow was right behind me, but his surprising swordsmanship skills helped fend off their forces. We then started traveling in this direction, eventually managing to shake off most of the shadow's forces in the area. In Caemlyn, after our unexpected meeting with Elida, we had concluded that we needed to travel elsewhere and could not immediately come to Tar Valon. Thus, we first traveled to Fal Dara, and from there to the Eye of the World. There, we killed Aginor, Balthamo, and Ishamael, and broke the Shadow's army that sought to overrun Shi'anar. Then, we traveled to Shadar Logoth to cleanse Sedin, and then we traveled to Tyr so Rand could claim Calendor. Immediately after that, we came here. I am incredibly bloody tempted to drag you down to the harbor, commandeer a ship, and carry out my threat," Xuan said, calmly. "Closely." Rand briefly glanced at Moiraine. "I'd say there aren't any inaccuracies in there. In fact, your first oath wouldn't allow that anyway." "She set you up for this, didn't she?" Xuan said. "She did not need to," the Forsaken Xuan demanded. 3 of them. I don't think they were expecting me to open with balefire," Rand said casually. "Or for Moiraine to do so as well." "You know what? Blast it," Xuan said. I don't know." She threw her hands up. "Give me the whole story, start to finish." "I don't care anymore. I'll decide what to think after." I suppose it starts with me doing something incredibly irresponsible and undoing 2 years of the pattern, effectively sending me back in time with my memories and those of Luz. Telemon, Rand said. Siuan stared at him, blinked, considered her avenues to reply. All right, fine. Just continue, please. Everything we've done since was based on the knowledge I brought with me, Rand continued. As a side note, whatever happened clearly negated the taint on my mind. Before I went back, I did not have nearly the mental clarity I've enjoyed over the past month. That's not ominous at all, Siuan noted. I fear it's the best I can provide. Together with cleansing Sedin, of course. Siuan didn't visibly react to that. Together with Moiraine, I quickly determined what our priorities should be. At the top of the list was cleansing Sedin, something I had not managed until much later the previous time around. However, as you are well aware, doing so would provide a beacon for every channeler alive, including the Forsaken. Ishamael in particular was never quite properly sealed away and could periodically affect the world. Please tell me that's not true. He is the one behind the name Baalzamon, although he did seem to believe himself to be the Dark One. The Trolloc Wars were his doing, and I suspect he may have had a hand in various aspects of aL'Thor Hawkwing's empire and reign as well. So we could not simply attempt to cleanse Sedin immediately, and instead had to keep my knowledge and experience secret until such time when we could strike at the freed Forsaken at once, taking them by surprise. The only location we knew for this was the Eye of the World, which conveniently provided a source of purified Sedin that let me fight the battle without having to expose myself to the taint. So we traveled the old-fashioned method, which also provided my friends egwene and nynaeve some time to get acquainted with the One Power. They are channelers, Siuan asked. Quite strong ones, Rand said. Both are stronger than any current Aes Sedai. Egwene is on Elaine's level, I assume you have met her, and nynaeve is a little stronger yet. You have met the daughter heir in Camelin, Siuan asked. Quite a bit more than that in the previous timeline, but that's something to discuss later if it's relevant in the first place. After Camelin, we traveled to Shienar, and from there to the Eye, where, as Moiraine already mentioned, we managed to surprise both Aginor and Balthamel. I then fought Ishamael away from the others, and managed to kill him too. After that, we traveled immediately to Shadar Logoth and began to cleanse Sedin, which you are of course already aware of. And what did you do in the days since sleep, mostly? Rand said. The effort of channeling as much of the One Power as Moiraine and I did left us both unconscious for several days. We awoke yesterday, traveled to Ter to obtain Kalandor and get myself established, and now we're here for the last of the essential tasks we set. To announce yourself to the world? Siuan asked. Or to the White Tower specifically? That is part of it, Rand said. The main goal is to rout the Black Ajah before they have time to respond. Siuan's disposition changed slightly when that word was spoken, but she was clearly well aware of their existence. Moiraine had encountered them almost 20 years ago already, and several times since. And how would you want to go about that? A stage magician cannot reveal all his tricks, Rand said cheekily. Let's get your Keeper of the Chronicles in here first and bring her up to speed. Siuan looked to Moiraine. Moiraine, if you could. Despite not showing any emotion, Moiraine managed to convey the equivalent of a dirty look to an astute observer like Rand or Siuan. Payback for what she'd made Siuan go through earlier, probably. Moiraine stood and made her way to Liane Sharif's office, returning with the rather surprised Domani woman a minute later. In the meanwhile, Rand wove his mirror of mists again, showing a style of dress much like he had been used to in the old timeline. Where do Moiraine Sedai and your other visitor come from? Mother Liane queried. Moiraine Sedai has rediscovered the weave of traveling, Siuan said. Liane's eyes widened in amazement. Oh. She was tall, with coppery skin, and beautiful in the way most Domani were, despite putting little effort into her appearance. From what Rand remembered, she had embraced her Domani nature more after her stilling, and in fact, she had joined the Green Ajah after Nynaeve had healed her. However, all of that was unlikely to come to pass. But that is also a security risk, Liane said. having gotten over her excitement. "And do you not mind her sudden and unannounced appearance, Mother Moiraine had important information that needed to be shared with me as soon as possible," Siuan said. Rand wondered if it was a true statement in the most obvious sense. After all, Moiraine had arguably dallied a bit with coming here, or in the sense that it was Siuan's opinion. "You may have a point regarding security, however. I had not yet considered that. There exist wards that can bar the creation of gateways within them," Rand supplied. "Who are you?" Lean asked. "I am Rand aL'Thor," he responded, showing Callandor. Leany gasped. "Is that Callandor?" "Yes. I am the Dragon Reborn." Lean seemed too shocked to speak, so Rand continued. "I am sure every sister in the tower has heard by now that Sedin has been cleansed. Moiraine and I performed this task. As for why I am here, today will be the downfall of the Black Ajah." Lean still needed a few moments to gather her balance, although she masterfully kept it off her face, but she grasped onto the one thing she knew how to respond to. "Those are very dangerous words to speak, Lord aL'Thor." "Then today will be a very difficult day for you, Lean Sedai. Thankfully, we are not merely a step, but a full leap ahead of the shadow, but we must act quickly. When the Black Ajah learns the full extent of my recent actions, they will not underestimate us anymore." Lien turned to Siuan, seeking her direction. "We will do as the Dragon Reborn says, daughter," Siuan said. "What he and Moiraine Sedai have told and shown me, as well as the conversations I have had with Elaida Sedai, give me full confidence in him." Some surprise actually showed on Lena's face. "Elaida Sedai knows you are harboring the Dragon Reborn, and kept that information secret. That was a surprise to Rand too, and Moiraine, although she showed none of it. I have found surprising common ground with Elaida Sedai this past week," Siuan said. "We do not like each other, but we both see the value in working together despite that." "So, what do you propose, Dragon Reborn?" Lean asked, turning back to Rand. She seemed a little doubtful about things, but followed Siuan's orders. "First, I want you to collect the oath rod," Rand said. "It can be used to unswear and re-swear oaths, which will be necessary, as the Black Ajah has removed their oaths and sworn different ones, ensuring loyalty to the Dark One. Then, get someone to send Sheriam Sedai up here." Lean briefly looked to Siuan for confirmation, then left to carry out those two tasks. She, Siuan, and Moiraine most likely assumed Rand just wanted to get Sheriam in on the hunt as well. Rand hadn't shared Sheriam's allegiance to the Black Ajah with them.